We are live.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another Educator Innovator Hangout on Air. This introduces the Letters to the Next President 2.0 Make Cycles for the summer, and this is Make Cycle number 1's Hangout. I'm your host for this Hangout, Joe Dillon, and I'm with the Denver Writing Project, which is in full swing right now with a Summer Institute and a Young Writers Camp underway. This Hangout connects the Letters to the Next President project, connects to the Letters to the Next President project, and I have a little slideshow I'm going to walk you through to kind of briefly give some background about what that project is. Which requires me to screen share, which can be a technical feat. Yeah, so the Letters to the Next President 2.0 engages and connects young people, aged 13 to 18, as they research, write, and make media to voice their opinions on issues that matter to them in the coming election. You can visit letterstopresident.org to learn more. Currently, this website is bringing together resources and opportunities for educators working with youth. In late July, it will become a publishing site for youth letters, both text and multimedia letters. Sign up now to kind of follow that evolution and learn more. The webinar today is connected to a summer series of opportunities for educators. It's part of the Letters to the Next President 2.0 Summer Make Cycles for Educators. So hopefully it supports educators in how they might work with youth on this project in their classroom or other contexts. Today is the first Make Cycle. We're going to focus today's discussion on how any of us, adults or youth, can engage critically with media by remixing, remaking, and speaking back, whether to news, to political advertising, or around topics that we are passionate about. So I want to thank you for joining us today, and I want to offer a special thanks to our guests for making the time to be here and host this week's Make Cycle. For those of you who are watching this Hangout live, we encourage you to post your thoughts, ideas, questions via the Q&A feature embedded in the video player, or you can tweet questions and follow along using the hashtag #2NextPrez. So now I'd like to begin with brief introductions for everyone. Please tell us briefly who you are, what organization or school you're coming from, and one thing you're excited about today in relation to this discussion about remix and speaking back to media. Is it okay if we start with you, Alan?
Yes. Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Alan Berry. I'm the Education Director at The LAMP, the Learning About Multimedia Project. We're a nonprofit media literacy education organization based in New York City. And I'm really excited to hear about the other organizations and what they're doing around Letters to the Next President. And I'm very excited to introduce everyone to the LAMP's Media Breaker Studios platform as well.
Awesome. And you, Emily?
Hi, I'm Emily with The LAMP. I'm the Director of Communications and Development, and I am also excited to share everybody with Media Breaker Studios, which we just launched back in April, and also to talk back more to some of this election as we gear up and head into the national conventions now that it appears that we have 2 final candidates.
How about you, Jeremy Dean?
I'm Jeremy Dean. I'm the Director of Education at Hypothesis, which is a web annotation tool. I'm always excited to do anything that involves a national writing project, and I've long known about the LAMP since my days at Rap Genius in New York, and used to rap with DC Vito about remixing in video and remixing on lyrics. So this is a subject that's dear to my heart, and I'm excited to learn about the other projects and share what students and teachers can do with our web annotation tool.
Terrific, thanks. And that Robert, that leaves you.
Hi, I'm Robert Friedman with Mozilla Learning, and I'm excited about
the different projects represented today that really tackle current events in a very immediate fashion to give young people a voice to shape the world around them as it changes day to day. So I think that's really exciting. I'm glad to be part of this this webinar today.
Terrific. Well, thanks again to everybody for joining us. And what we want to do is just kind of go around the horn, hearing from each organization about what they're suggesting that educators might try during this make cycle to engage with hacking or breaking the news. So I'd like to start with Alan and Emily. Would you mind talking to us a little bit about what you're proposing that participants might do to speak back to the media?
Yeah, I'll take the helm, and Emily can jump in when she wants. So a project that we've been doing around the election is something we call Break the Election, and we've been going around to a lot of sites in New York City and having students engage with campaign ads, campaign advertisements, and commercials, looking at the how the candidates are communicating their message through visual and oral media, how the persuasion techniques that they're using. And then having students remix or talk back, as we say, to those campaign ads through our Media Breaker tool or through iMovie, Final Cut, whatever's available. And they're re-editing the ads, inserting their own critical opinions, questioning the techniques that the candidates are using. And I'm going to show you a couple of student examples. So I will share my screen. All right. So the first one, I'm going to try to be bipartisan here, or bipartisan. I'll show you one about a Ted Cruz ad.
There's a scorpion in the desert. For most of us, its venom is a clear and deadly threat. But others refuse to even speak its name. There's a scorpion in the desert. For most of us, its venom is a clear and deadly threat.
If I'm elected to serve as Commander-in-Chief, we won't cower in the face of evil. America will lead. We'll rebuild our military. We'll kill the terrorists. And every Islamic militant will know. If you wage jihad against us, you're signing your death warrant. If I'm elected president, we will triple the Border Patrol. We will build a wall that works. We will secure the border.
But others refuse to even speak its name. Since the scorpion seeks our destruction, isn't it time we recognize the scorpion for what it is before it strikes again?
I'm Ted Cruz, and I approve this message.
All right, so that's one example. As you can see, the student took that campaign ad and really questioned, really deconstructed the emotional appeal of fear that that ad is using to convince voters. And I will show you another one about Hillary Clinton.
Mom's life and what she went through are big reasons why standing up for kids and families became such a big part of my life.
The senator who made sure the heroes and families of 9/11 got the care they needed.
Just chilling in Cedar Rapids.
strong, America is strong.
So that group that tackled that, you can see they mashed up a lot of different media examples they took from a lot of different sources. So now I wanted to show you our Media Breaker Studios platform. As Emily said, we just launched this a couple weeks ago, but this is the platform. It works best on a Chrome browser. And it's as easy as registering. It's completely free. The only information we collect are email addresses. So you register and then you log in. And then the idea is that you're creating a studio space in which you invite students to view media, to break media, to talk back to media. And it's a completely safe space. The only people who will see your studio and see your students' work are yourself and the students you invite to that experience. So this is my studio. This is an experience I created around Break the Election. And every studio, every experience will have these two videos here. One's on critical commentary and one's on fair use in regards to critical remix. So those are good resources that you can use in the classroom. They're fun resources as well. And so this is the lesson plan that I created with some key questions for students to analyze, some outside sources. Factcheck.org is a great one. Political TV Ad Archive, which is Internet Archive's project where they're collecting all the campaign ads this election season and annotating them. I think that's a great example, great resource. And then within the experience, you can upload the media that you want your students to look at. So you're curating and a selection of videos for them. This also means that you don't have to have access to YouTube within your classroom setting, which from our experience in New York City schools, that really drags down the bandwidth. That's already, shoddy to begin with. So this is a way of circumventing that, and also, keeping your students' focus. But within this, you can look at the videos, and all of these videos exist within the platform itself. And then when a student wants to remix this Bernie Sanders ad, all they have to do is click Open a Media Breaker, and it will automatically take you to our remix tool, which is this that you see right now. And so that video will automatically show up on the timeline. This is my saved stuff, so I have quite a few edits already here. The video is here. You can upload other videos. Say if you want to mash up some other media artifacts like the Clinton Nene group did. So you can find them here. You can upload as many as you want. You can upload your own videos as well. You can upload other audio examples, sound effects, music. There's also an audio library that's already there for everyone with some sound effects and some music examples, all licensed through Creative Commons. And so within this, it's pretty simple to use. You can make simple cuts. You can delete things. You can add captions. You can add titles. And very easy to use. So if you've never edited yourself or you've never edited with your students, this should be easy to use. Or if you do have some experience editing, it should also be easy to use. It shouldn't be too frustrating, which is key for us. And then when you're done, the great thing is this is tied to an email address. My email address here, you'll see. Your students will also have their email address there. You can save, so you can always come back to this later. And then when you're ready, you hit submit, agree to the terms and conditions, and all of the breaks that your students create or you create will go to the break gallery that's tied to the studio experience. It's lagging behind here now, but you'll see all the breaks within that gallery, and students can comment on each other's work. They can give each other kudos whether they think it's great editing or it's a great idea or it's creative, they can do that, and students can see a running tally of their kudos as well. Yeah, and that's what we can do. I mean, that's what we've been doing. It can be as involved as you want it to be. We've run some Break the Election programs that were multiple days. We've run some that were just one-day workshops where students spent about 45 minutes creating breaks. It's really up to you. And I'm going to unshare my screen. Emily, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
No, not really. But I do see that there is a question from Twitter about if there is a way to avoid downloading large media files before uploading them to MediaBreaker. And the short answer is no. What we would suggest is you can download large files onto something like a thumb drive, or you can also put them onto something like Dropbox. But once they're up in MediaBreaker, you can also remove them from your computer, so you don't have to keep up that. You don't have to hold them on your hard drive permanently, so they can just be on there for just a short time. We do also suggest using shorter video clips. That's why things like political campaign ads that typically are no more than 30 seconds or a minute, those are generally smaller files, so those tend to work pretty well. But that's a workaround for using a larger file if that's the one that you really want to use.
Even a full HD video file downloaded from YouTube is going to be pretty small. It's not going to be more than 100 megabytes. But again, once it's uploaded to the MediaBreaker Studios platform, it lives within that platform, so you can get rid of that file. And
there's another audience question too. I see, how does Remix and Speaking Back to Media support writing a letter to the next president? So this is a good question. It's kind of a bigger one, and I think I'm probably one that other people might want to weigh in on as well. But I think in our interpretation, media is such a huge part of politics right now. I mean, has been really always. And it's a huge part of the political process, and it has such a huge impact on how we vote and why we vote and the way that we vote. And you know, so much of media, particularly in an age of Citizens United, is media talking to us and not us getting a lot of chances to do a lot of talking back. It can be really hard to even find out who's funding a particular ad. And so Remix is a way to sort of have your say in a world where if you don't have millions of dollars to go around sponsoring a candidate or putting up your own ad, it can feel kind of helpless as far as getting your message out there goes. And that's, yeah, we could go on much longer, I'm sure, on that question, but that's just a short.
Yeah, it's a different form of civic engagement. It's media activism as civic engagement. It's I mean, as young people get most of their information about the candidates and about the election from media. So the fact that they can take media and talk back to it, remix it, engage with it, instead of just accepting it, you know, just receiving it the way the candidates, the way media want us to. It's actually creating a dialogue and a conversation.
Yeah, and I think that's a terrific point to pick up later on in our discussion, because I think that you know, certainly youth or the educators engaged with us this summer will be trying to find topics of interest. But you know, generally speaking, when youth see media mashups, there's a level of interest-driven inquiry there too, where they want to know how that's done, and they're interested in, you know, how they create these mashups. So the idea that there's an interesting intersection of interest. So we'll come back to that. Thank you, Alan and Emily, for introducing the MediaBreaker stuff. And we'll if you're part of this project, then you've gotten a newsletter that will take you to some very specific and useful tutorials. So this is just really meant to sort of show some examples and pique your interest. Now I'd like to ask Robert from Mozilla to talk about what you're suggesting for participants this week.
Hi. Yeah, I'm excited to share actually something I did with some 8th graders 2 weeks ago in a Saturday program I run. So I'm going to start by just showing you some of the cool makes that our young leaders in the classroom made. So I'm going to screen share a few websites that were created by students. And I think the real goal for the work that I'm about to show you is to demonstrate how the web is hackable or remixable, right? How it can be a platform for youth to publish and express themselves using modern tools for production and participation. And so the first couple things I'm going to show you are kind of meme style quotes that young people found from the candidates. This one's a particularly cute picture of Bernie Sanders. And there's going to be a little bit of a political bias here, and I'm going to touch on that in a second, that came from the students themselves. So this is real feedback from a group of 8th graders in a STEM classroom I work with. So the prompt that I used with the students to kind of get them thinking and searching was to identify quotes from candidates they support or oppose that really elicit viewpoints that they feel strongly about, and to find those quotes to either just share them with friends or to critique them or to add their own commentary. So this really simple example is one where it's really just a simple share out of something Bernie Sanders said. Now, if you're interested in following along with these examples and seeing them yourself, I actually have a really simple link for you, which I am going to try to bring up, but it's mzl.la/make cycle 1. So if you go to mzl.la, and I'm going to pop it up for you right now, mzl.la/make cycle 1, you can actually see all these student examples linked there, and the prompts that we use to sort of elicit them. So check that out. It's an online discussion forum where you can continue to ask questions about these makes after the fact. So here's the Bernie Sanders one. There's the thing in particular that I kind of asked students to do was to find quotes that resonated with what we were doing in class. So we're a STEM class, and so I asked them to look for things that maybe resonate with their perspective on how STEM has shown up in the election. So we got some cool feedback on climate change. So here's a quote from Hillary Clinton on climate change that's a little provocative. I guess here's the grandmother meme coming back again. She likes to advertise that. Here's a funny quote someone found from Donald Trump. Funny depending on your particular sense of humor. And it's cute to see this young person, or it's particularly interesting to see this young person highlight their own perspective, which is that climate change, which is actually super technical and interesting there. It's global climate change, not global warming, and it affects everyone, not just you. So this is a young person both sharing a quote and commentary on that quote. These are pretty low barrier to entry activities, and I'll show you how we produce these in just a moment. It actually takes young people into HTML and CSS, into the actual code, but it's a pretty intuitive approach and a light lift effort. Another approach we take is something we call hack the news, and I'll show you where all of these activities live, and you can find them in the newsletter as well, and in that discourse thread I shared at the beginning of the forum. And so here's an example of a Washington Post article on how Trump reveals his plans for a border wall, and it's written by Bob Woodward. We use a tool called X-ray goggles to let young people break into this or hack this website. It doesn't actually impact the Washington Post. It creates a copy, a duplicate version of this page, and allows them to interact with the duplicate page version. And this is actually a much more user-friendly tool, and I'll show you it in a second. And so while the first couple examples I showed you were simpler commentary, simpler forms of commentary, hack the news activity using X-ray goggles allows for young people to do a lot more expression, creative expression. So I'm going to show you that in a second. And so what you'll see here is that this young person has substituted his own photo for Donald Trump, this article about Donald Trump. They've changed the headline a little bit from "It's now a horrible plan." And then if you go into the text, they've actually also modified the text of the post. And here in particular is when they start talking about when it comes to the STEM program, Donald Trump might send back children and young teens that could have been in the STEM program, children and young teens that could have benefited from the program with knowledge to help in the future. So here's a young person who's really speaking about their own perspective on this news story. And so you can imagine thinking about this sort of letters to the next president theme, having young people write letters to our next president in the form of editorials on the Washington Post, the way they'd like to see their voice. I think that's important to mention when we're talking about political commentary, is that we want to maintain the web as an inclusive place, as a place that sort of respects a lot of different perspectives. And so, really making sure that students back their arguments up with facts and cite sources when they can, have them fact check, and just inform their opinions and make sure that they're considering this both an informed response and an inclusive one that respects the many different perspectives of folks and how they show up in that space. So we did some preempting of that before students dove in. I asked them to be critical about how this perspective shows up in their life and not necessarily just provocative anti-candidate statements. The young people are still learning about that. We actually just got a tweet today from an educator who created their own little remix of a candidate's poster. So that's a poster project is another form of remix that we're engaging with in Letters to Next President. So I just want to give a shout out to Michael Buist, if I pronounced that right, for already jumping in and tackling a make today. So I said that you can find all of this on our discourse page, which is our community forum. I've posted up some information and example links for student work that you can follow through on, and that was the mzl.la/makecycle1 link that'll get you to those. And all of these examples are made using tools which you can find on our website, learning.mozilla.org, and you'll find them under tools. And some of the tools we're talking about specifically today are X-ray goggles and Thimble. These are two tools that allow you to remix and make for the web. So in the last minute or two that I've got with you, I'm going to just show you how easy this can be. So if you are following along, you're looking at some of the student work, and you particularly like this Bernie Sanders photo, you think it's cute, but you want to add a little text. To the top right corner, you'll find a remix button. This works really well on Firefox, but most things do. So you can remix this in Firefox, but you can use Chrome or other browsers as well. And you can then go into the actual code on the back side of the project, and you'll see the code on the left and Sanders and the actual product on the right. The scaling's a little funny right now because of the webinar, and you can do a little bit of adjustment of that. And it's super easy to just go in here and say, change this code to be, I don't know, and I like candy. Yay. So if that's, I'm sure Bernie said that at some point in his career. Who doesn't? So if you want to quickly remix the text or something, you can do it in a really professional looking environment that's easy for young people to follow and for it to get into. This is one of those very low barrier to entry, low ceiling, or low floor, high ceiling activities where young people then get really discover for themselves how to interact here. The Trump remix, the article, this news article, is using a tool called X-ray goggles. It's basically a browser link you can load and launch in your in browser. I'm having trouble launching it right now. So rather than trying to workshop this right now, fix this for myself right now, I'll just urge you to check out X-ray goggles, which allows you to actually visually change a website in browser without that more complex back end. None of that coding stuff. On the back end, it's very, very visual and allows you to remix that page directly. So I highly recommend you check out X-ray goggles for that. So I'm going to stop here. I think I showed you a couple really compelling examples of student makes, something you could do quickly, like the quote project, something that could take longer, like really thoughtfully remixing an article, and where you can find our tools. And so I'm happy to answer any questions. And I'm not sure if I'm seeing any just yet. So I'll pass it back to you, Joe, and pause here.
Yeah, that's terrific. Thank you so much, Robert. I think it's important just to slow down and notice that those first two opportunities to speak back to media are really, naming some ways we can look at the way composition is evolving on the web, and the letters that might be produced, the quote-unquote letters that might be produced, whether you're breaking the media with the LAMP's media breaker tool or employing one of Mozilla's tools, you're really producing kind of a non-traditional letter, which we think that this the Letters to the Next President site will be able to host those multimedia letters. And so these letters to the president, they certainly have the intended audience of, yes, the president, but being open letters published openly on the web, the idea is that they might get a much broader audience about topics of interest, and that youth might use these evolving tools to compose letters that are sort of in a new format. And then, sort of speaking of new formats and new digital tools, we have Jeremy Dean from Hypothesis. And so Jeremy, Hypothesis is a tool for social annotation. I wonder if you might just introduce us a little bit to what is social annotation, what is digital annotation, and how might it work in this project?
Sure thing. Well, I'm an English teacher by training, and I think of annotation as a kind of the original remixing, right? There's books and authors, and then people who are reading books can write in the margins of those texts, in analog paper books, and speak back to, as I think Alan used the phrase, or talk back to the text, or talk back to the author. Web annotation adds a lot to that. You can annotate text on the web using our tool, and I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen and walk through some pages. So it's Hypothesis, and Hypothesis is Icelandic URL, so it's Hypothesis with a .is at the end. That's how you can find all this stuff. And web annotation, I think, adds two things to the original idea of annotation, which should be familiar to teachers and to students, and that is it makes it social, it can be collaborative, and it also makes it multimedia. But even saying all that, I think to some extent I'm the least evolved, or Hypothesis is the least evolved of the tools we're looking at here, because it really is all about text. And sort of commenting on text, and less about remixing video, which is awesome, and less about remixing the web, though it's all the same kind of talking back, remixing pedagogy. I think of annotation as breaking the media as well, though that's not that's the LAMP's term, right? So we have it's a general purpose tool. It was invented so people could speak back to the web, and I'm the director of education, so I help classrooms make use of this tool throughout the year, and we're excited to be partnered with National Writing Project for this Letters to the Next President project. So we have a portal for educators, and also a portal for the Letters to the Next President project. You can see it's annotated here. So there's a little sidebar. The way that works is there's a little sidebar that pops up on the right of a web page, and there's an annotation here. And there are replies to the annotation, so little conversations can ensue. We've created some assignments for how people can use this in relationship to the Letters to the Next President project. People are annotating using the ToNextPres tag on our site, so it's a little bit like Twitter, where you can sort of follow a feed of annotations created as part of the project. And I'll really quickly demo the tool. It can be used on a newspaper article. Right now, I'll just demo how you would use it if you had a Chrome extension installed. We have bookmarklets from Mozilla and other browsers, but there's a Chrome extension you can see in the upper right-hand corner here that I can click on, and when I do so, the sidebar pops out. And if I've activated the Chrome extension, then I'll be given a sort of option when I select text to highlight it, which is private, or annotate it publicly. Another way that I can use the tool, which I think is the kind of best way for somebody who's starting off, is to just grab a URL. So I'm going to grab this transcript of the speech Hillary Clinton gave a few weeks ago or last week. I'm going to go back to the Hypothesis website. There's a little window on the front page, or a little box on the front page. I can paste any link in there, any web URL, and press annotate, and it will reopen that website with this annotation layer and capability. So if there are existing annotations, I'll be able to see them, and I'll also be able to start creating annotations. And all it did was add a little prefix to the URL. Oops, sorry, this video's playing. You can see a little prefix here, just prepended via.hypothesis in front of the normaltime.com URL, and that makes the page annotatable. So a little like the Mozilla Goggles project, although in this case you're actually sort of writing on a layer on top of the website. You can't remix the website itself, but you can intervene. You can make comments about what Hillary is saying if you disagree, or support her argument if you agree. It can be creative. You can sort of just annotate with like videos or images, as I was doing today on this article about Paul Ryan. So I can embed a YouTube video as an annotation, or an image. So you could have kids annotate with images, videos, and GIFs as part of their kind of intervention in the text. And one neat thing that you can do in terms of sharing this out more broadly is I can share an annotated page. This link, again, a via hypothesis link, if I put that on Twitter, it would share the annotatable page. So a student or a class could share this out in some way to invite others to join. And I can also share a specific annotation. So if I'm inside an annotation, I can copy that little link, go to Twitter, paste it in, and what's our hashtag? 2nextprez?
That's it.
So there's my 2nextprez sample annotation. And then on Twitter, anybody coming along will click on that, and it will open up the Time, or this was the NewYorkTimes.com. It'll open up that page, it'll open up the sidebar, and it'll open up my annotation. So it's the kind of provocation for the beginning of a conversation. So I think that's all I got in terms of sharing the tool and how it works. But again, it's hypothesis.com/education for more information, and I'm available at Dr._JDean on Twitter for assistance. I'm happy to work one-on-one with teachers to get them started. We haven't seen a lot of students using this yet. We've seen a lot of teachers using it, but we're really looking forward to the fall and having the students use web annotation to intervene in the political conversation.
You had one question I saw pop up in the chat, Jeremy. A viewer is wondering if the hypothesis annotations are live. So if you're on a website annotating, would you see it if someone else was?
Right, and that reminds me of something else I should have mentioned, was that we have a private group feature which creates a kind of walled garden for classes, and that's actually where most of our classes so far have been using it. In that case, you wouldn't, but it would be live for the class. So a class could be annotating using a private group on top of any of those pages I showed you, and they could be doing it in class, they could be doing it for homework, and the new annotations would pop up. Yes, it's all live. And so if you were to jump if somebody actually follows my tweet to the Ryan article in the New York Times today, and I was to go and reopen my my view of it here, if you were to add annotations or reply to my annotation, all that stuff would pop up live. So yeah, that also reminds me that we're hosting this idea of an annotate-a-thon, or as Joe prefers to call it, I think, a annotation flash mob. But the idea is that, we could have done this last week with Hillary's speech, where if we tweeted out the annotatable via link, students across the country could all descend upon that, annotating publicly together. So they can be used for live events. I'm hoping to do something like that around the national conventions, and there's a few kind of thematic historical moments that we'll be doing it around as well, where we're going to sort of set aside a specific time where we're going to invite teachers and students across the country to join on a specific text. But it can be used on anything. So your local newspaper that has an editorial, it can be used there. It doesn't have to be on these major events either.
Yeah, and one more question. It says they're wondering if individual students can annotate on hypothesis rather than an entire class annotating on the same site. And I think I'll go ahead and field this one for you. Anybody with an account can annotate any web page they want. And if a student was off on some article that the class wasn't reading, that's the benefit of using a hashtag, right? So to participate in this project, if you're a teacher who's going to mark up the news and speak back to the news using hypothesis, if you tag those annotations with #2nextprez, then folks can find your annotations with that hashtag. So if you're reading some article that's unique to you, that's how you sort of bring that article into the fold, and hashtags can kind of aggregate the content that a class is looking at. Really quickly, I want to just jump in. I just want to talk a little bit about how this project really focuses a little less. I think we've had great examples that focused on candidates, and as we're thinking about educators producing letters or educators working with youth to produce a letter, we're really pointing towards the idea that there's going to be one president, and a relevant letter at that point would be less about candidates and more about issues. And I think most teachers kind of agree that it is high interest for students to think about these candidates and think about who's in the news. And so as educators, we want to think about how do we get students to some of the deeper issues that will be around, after Ted Cruz is no longer in the news, etc. So one of the things I want to screen share, because we're just screen sharing like crazy, and why not? I want to share a couple ideas for how we might do that. First, I want to show a website, KQED's Do Now. And if I go to www.kqed.org, and then I click on Do Now, what I have access to is a lot of web pages that are framing debatable topics for youth. And I think that pointing educators during this project to all these debatable topics really starts to tap into our interests, like which one stirs your passions the most. Which of these debates would you tune out of? Which of these debates would you stay up late trying to support your point? I think that this is a great site for, if you're working with students who, if you ask them what their interests are and they say, swimming and soccer, then this is how you get them to think more deeply about what is of interest to them. This is one way, is to just immerse them in some ideas like this. And another one is this, New York Times Room for Debate. So if you went to the New York Times Room for Debate, they've been archiving these debatable topics for years and years and years. And so dropping youth on a page like this, they start to encounter some of this media they might remix, or some of the web pages they might twist up with Mozilla's X-ray glasses, or some of the articles they might mark up and then pass along to a friend. So those are two places, KQED's Do Now and the New York Times Room for Debate. It's kind of starting to really flush out, like, what are the issues that are truly most important to us. I wonder if some of our guests maybe have some comments or some observations, if you've been working with educators about high interest topics, about how you surface those, or what you sort of find when youth or teachers are engaged in interest-driven work, mixing the media or breaking the media.
So, hi again. One of the things specifically around media remix that teachers can get lost in is, like, where do I find media to remix, which is often difficult to find, and with a lot of different resources available online. YouTube is actually a great source because all the candidates generally have their own YouTube channel, so you can just go straight to their YouTube channel and they'll post any commercials that they create or super PACs create about them, speeches, sound bites, that'll all be there. Another great source that I usually point teachers to is the Museum of the Moving Images site. They haven't updated it since 2012, but they have the entire history of political ads available there that you can watch and you can examine. And then again, I'll point you to that political ad archives, politicalarchive.org site. That's an amazing site. Please be
advised, all 110 West 34th Street residents, the building will be closing in 10 minutes.
Oh, that's okay. We'll be done in about 10 minutes. Hey, Robert, actually, you wanted to field the question from the chat. Do you want to jump in and do that real quick?
Oh, thanks a lot, Joe.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think I find that young people actually, you're right. I think when you first, oftentimes you ask what their interests are, you get soccer and swimming maybe, but asking them to dig deep into the subjects that concern them in their daily lives, some of the challenges they face in their day-to-day commutes to school or in their home environments, often lead quickly to issues of national concern. And so I think starting with student interest is a strong way to do it. And getting to the question from the audience, one of the pieces that I think it makes a tool like X-ray goggles. I'm just going to answer the question by demonstrating in a second how to do a particular thing. Is that it starts with a piece of real media, a piece of real news or a website. I'm actually going to use to show this off because it's just a easy, accessible, not necessarily controversial space. Is the Smithsonian's Teen Tribune as a place to sort of get news articles that young people might be interested in or that are grade appropriate at least, which is great. And so the question from the audience was, how can you actually save some of this thimble or some of this X-ray goggles remix in a way that's not just a link but allows them to go deeper into the coding, which is a really great question. So if we take a look at an article here, I'm just going to walk you through super quick. And I was able to get the X-ray goggles working, just a bad link for me. And when you use X-ray goggles, it actually just becomes a bookmark in your browser. And when you turn it on, all of a sudden it starts to highlight elements of the website. And you can go in and pick out an element that you want to change, and you get a really nice little interface that allows you to pretty visually and pretty quickly say something like young virtuosos heading out into. So it allows you to quickly add text, update the site, jump into an image. You can also change images. That gets a little bit more complex, so I'm not going to do it right now. If you publish this site, you get if you're signed in to Thimble, actually. So if you go to the Thimble website and you sign in, and then you, I'll try and make this quick. Of course, now I'm messing this up. If you sign in, so I'm going to sign in as myself, and you're logged into the actual site, when you go to publish, through X-ray goggles, well, it would know that you're logged in. I'm kind of botching this on the fly, but under your projects, you'll actually find those goggles remixes. So it's a project that you can then go back into and get really hot and heavy with the code if that's what you're all about. But you never have to go to this level of detail. You can always sort of stay at this visual element level and get a publishable link that you can share with people. But I think that's, just to take it back to the original question and give other people a chance to bat this around, I think starting with things that are really viable and present in young people's lives, like what they think about their class. How does what they're learning right now in class impact real issues in the world? You might get some provocative responses, but I think starting with student interest is a strong place to do it. But I'll bounce that back to somebody else if they want to tackle. I think especially with the, where do you find content is a challenging thing.
Yeah, I'll quickly just chime in there and just say two things I think are relevant. One, you can follow, and I'll tweet it in a second if NWP doesn't, but there's a tag for ToNextPres on Hypothesis. So you can discover what people are annotating with that tag by going to the stream, and you can jump on those documents with them. But the other cool thing about Hypothesis, and I don't, I sort of leave it up to teachers and students to do this for the most part, but one of the cool things about Hypothesis that Joe alluded to is that you can set students loose. And rather than say we're all going to annotate the Hillary Clinton national security speech, go find something compelling to you about the election and annotate that and tell us, why it's important to you, why it's not, something like that. So there's a kind of freedom that Hypothesis allows where the web is, the entire classroom. That's a little much. Obviously students are going to need some direction, but as Joe said, it can all come back to the center if you have a tag for ToNextPres, and then maybe for your specific class, you can aggregate all those different texts that students have discovered in one place, and then you can send them to each other's texts and say, go respond to a classmate's interests in their annotations.
I think that's terrific. And Emily, what are your thoughts about sort of interest-driven learning and how it sort of dovetails with breaking the media using your tools?
Well, so it's one reason why we have the tool to begin with is we saw in our programs that kids were interested in working with the pop culture material that they're already engaging with and the stuff that they're already watching and they're already talking to their friends about. And so this is a way to sort of take those responses and put them into a video. And we know that young kids might not be quite so interested in politics, but there are so many still pop cultural moments that come out of elections and out of campaigns that we think that there's still room there for kids to use those as entry points into the issues that they care about and the things that they care about. And obviously this election has been, or this campaign season has been one that's been hard for anyone, regardless of your age, I think, to turn away from. And we know that kids are talking about it, and using media in this way, we hope, is a way for them to be able to engage with it and talk with it, even though they might not be able to vote, they might not have a particular, founded set of ideology. They can still respond to some of the ideas that are being proposed and the responses and things that are floating around as a result of what candidates are saying and proposing.
Yeah, and I think that seeing a strong remix, oftentimes the youth's first reaction is sort of the oohs and ahs, and then a lot of how is that done type of questions.
Well, and that's one of the things that we've done with Media Breaker that we want to see replicated elsewhere, is that it does take a lot of practice to get to do a remix well. Fair use is hard, and I think that's one thing I would just reiterate for every teacher that's out there, is that this is a challenging thing to do, and no one's going to get it right on the first time. I mean, even the samples that we showed you, they're not perfect examples of fair use.
Yeah, but I think the beautiful thing about that remix culture is a little bit of what Jeremy was saying, and I hear it in what you're saying, Emily, too, is that there's a lot of provocative stuff out there. There's a lot of controversial or exciting or sometimes scary ideas being tossed around, especially in this election. And I think it's no secret to young people. They're seeing it in the media that they're consuming. And when you start with that and you enable them to flip it, to speak back to it, to modify it, to add their own voice to it, that's definitely an impactful way to get young people exploring issues and becoming invested in them.
Yeah, and I think about what Emily, when you're talking about how your tools, how the tools are really user-friendly, right? And kind of like what Robert was saying earlier, it's sort of low barrier to entry, but a very high ceiling in terms of getting all that stuff right. And I just want to, sort of highlight again this idea of working this summer with other educators. So as other teachers are sort of risk-taking and trying this stuff during the summer when they have time and sort of the headspace to do this, this is also a time where you can, do some peer-supported learning with teachers. So I guess I would just ask, because we're almost out of time, how about we sort of whip around and maybe sort of words of encouragement to participant educators, maybe, about the Letters to the Next President project. And Emily, would you mind going first?
Sure. I would just say just keep trying, keep practicing. I think we've seen some really interesting discussions come out of the programs that we've done with this, and I think just keep plugging away and keep trying. Nobody's ever going to get it right on their first time. So, but it's the making mistakes and the trying again that's really, I think, where the fun is with Remix.
Yeah, awesome. I love this theme of making mistakes, and I think, Joe, you're right. Summer is the time to sort of fail early, fail often, to get your feet wet in some of this technology, But the Letters to the Next President is such a timely issue, or it's such a timely activity around a timely issue with this election coming, that I think it's a way for you as an educator to use these tools to start doing your own critical thinking about how you're going to vote this fall and how you're going to talk to your friends about these things. So, and then bring that into the classroom in the fall. So good luck and to everyone who gives this a shot this summer.
Oh man, Robert, you just totally set me up for exactly what I wanted to say, which is, yeah, I mean, the cool thing about Hypothesis is that it's a tool for the classroom, but, you know, I met Joe in a context like this, and I know Joe primarily from annotation online. You know, I'll see him annotating, I'll jump in, I'll see him annotating, I'll be like, oh, that looks interesting, let me jump in on there and read that article too and chat with him in that space. And so for me, I mean, I'm the director of education. I hope lots of young people use this. I think it's a great classroom tool, and it dovetails nicely with their use of social media generally. But for teachers, you know, all you need is an account and a link, and you can just start commenting on whatever. And I'm pretty sure that most teachers are the kind of people that when they read stuff, they got a highlighter or a pen or something like that, and this is the equivalent of that for the web, plus your colleagues are there. So it's a little more social, and you can be a little goofy and use GIFs and stuff like that to, you know, get in that kid headspace.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just really want to thank everybody for participating. You know, Alan had to split early, so we want to thank Alan. Thank you, Emily. Thanks, Robert. Thanks, Jeremy. And thank you to the LAMP, Mozilla, and Hypothesis. And thanks to all the educators who watched this Hangout. Good luck making your own remix and sharing with us. We look forward to checking those out as the week goes on. This Thursday, there will be a Twitter chat about remix and speaking back to the media at that same hashtag, #2nextpres, and visit letters2president.org and sign up today. So thanks again to Educator Innovator for hosting. You can sign up for the monthly newsletter at educatorinnovator.org for more opportunities like these, and follow Educator Innovator on Twitter at @innovates_ed. Thanks.